Hello guys and welcome back to Poser's Full Movie Recaps. Our film today is a sci-fi supernatural horror movie about a group of scientists who develop something that they can't control. Might be how the zombie apocalypse happens. The film begins with footage of a group of medical researchers performing an operation on a dead pig. The research is about a serum with the purpose of bringing back the consciousness of someone, especially coma patients. Zoe McConnell leads the research at the University of California, together with student interns Eva, who documented the team's progress in research and experiments. Nico and Clay, who assist with the actual experiment and testing, and Frank, who happens to be Zoe's fiancé. Frank explains in a video file about Zoe's breakthrough, who managed to create a serum called Lazarus that can bond on B-cell tumors, which can speed up the nerve fiber regrowth. He further explains each piece of equipment that they use and its functions. They show how they activate the serum and inject it to start neural activation in the brain's temporal lobe, then charge it with enough energy to jumpstart the reactivation of brain functions, which will give more time to medical professionals to apply their treatment to someone and bring them back. As Zoe prepares for the test experiment, she plays classical music to set the mood and proceeds to her lab. She notices a silhouette behind her and looks around to check what's going on. Suddenly, there is a man in a pig's mask that startled Zoe. The man is Nico, who just wants to mess around to lighten up the mood. The two eat the food that Nico brought and talk a little about Zoe's long engagement with Frank. They had been engaged for 3 years and put off the wedding to give way with the research they are doing. On the same night, Zoe has a nightmare about being trapped inside a burning apartment building. She wakes up gasping when burnt hands protrude from beneath a door. Frank tries comforting her, and it seems that her nightmare is a regular occurrence which he's very familiar with. The next day, the team brainstormed on how to improve their experiment, and Clay introduces a good idea that the group quickly agreed to put to test. They start operating an experiment with a deceased blind dog named Rocky. At first, it appears that there are no changes in Rocky, so they try again for the second time. Zoe feels frustrated because there seems to be no response again, but Eva noticed that Rocky's ear twitch a bit while taking a video of the proceeding. They examine the non-moving Rocky when suddenly, he starts to bark and move erratically. The group panics but they eventually calm the previously deceased blind dog, and Zoe noted that his cataract is gone. Frank warns the team not to talk about anything outside the lab until they study their success further. They start celebrating with a bottle of champagne, and later, Frank and Zoe take Rocky with them to their home. They notice that Rocky seems sad and doesn't want to eat any food. Frank says that maybe he just needs a few days to adjust to being back from the dead, but Zoe still feels worried that something went wrong with their experiment. Frank assures Zoe that they will be able to help many people with what they are doing, and continue to study while his fiancée is sleeping. While Zoe sleeps, Rocky appears on the bed and seems to observe the woman sleeping. The next day at the laboratory, the interns try to play with an unresponsive Rocky. The team discusses a different theory about life and death, and what happens to the brain of someone who is about to die. Zoe thinks that whatever theory is out there about the soul and consciousness, it's just neural impulses firing in someone's brain, which can be created or destroyed. They perform further tests on Rocky so they would learn more about his brain activity. The result shows that he has hypothyroidism, which can possibly make Rocky become suddenly aggressive. They also discover that the serum is still present in his body, which should dissipate within hours of administration. Later, Clay is left alone with Rocky in his cage when suddenly, he hears something crash. When he investigates, Clay sees the fridge open with food all over the place, so he hurriedly checks on Rocky and finds him missing. He gets startled when Rocky loudly barks at him, and when he looks back, he starts growling at him. A moment later, the team returns and Clay tells them what happens. But they are skeptical to believe him and think that he is just overreacting. The next day, Frank gets a summon from the dean of the university, and he lectures him about their underground experiments. The dean is upset that the team is trying to play God with a bunch of deceased animals. Frank wonders how the dean learns of what they are doing and asks her about it. Turns out that someone has been showing them the footage of the experiments. While this happens, a group of people from a pharmaceutical company shows up at the lab, and confiscate all the team's data and equipment. It seems that a big company becomes interested in their work, and wants the sole claim for the team's hard work. Zoe accuses Eva of leaking the information since this only happens after she arrives to document everything. But Frank understands that their work might be a gold mine, and someone wants to take credit for everything and not share the profit with them. On the same night, the team sneaks back into the lab to duplicate their project, so the pharmaceutical company cannot claim the sole credit for their masterpiece. They use that pass that Eva kept, and will document another experiment to have proof that they are the ones who created it. Nico hacks into the security server to buy them some time, while Clay brings the second deceased dog and prepares it for the operation. When the test subject is ready for administration, Zoe prepares to activate the voltage, but an accident happens with the power, and all the lights turn off. When the power goes back, Frank finds his fiancée lying on the floor lifeless. It seems that she has been electrocuted due to a faulty electrical switch, and the group starts to resuscitate her without success. Frank remembers their experiment, and because he doesn't want to lose the love of his life, he decides to use the serum on Zoe. The rest of the team tries to argue with Frank that it is unethical and something might go wrong. Zoe might become aggressive like the dog, but Frank won't hear about this and proceeds with the experiment, accepting all the possible consequences of it. He tells the team that they can leave if they want to, but the group chooses to stay to see the procedure through. Frank injects the serum into Zoe's brain, and Eva takes charge of the voltage activation. Nothing happens on their first try, so Frank decides to up the dosage and tries again. Nico noticed that the security guard is approaching their lab, so they immediately turn off everything and hide. When the guard leaves, they find Zoe's body in a sitting position, and it seems that the procedure works for her. Frank quickly approaches his fiancée to examine her, when Zoe suddenly grabs his hand and asks if she has passed away. Frank tends to her punctured head while the team watches. Eva suddenly remembers their earlier argument and asks Zoe what she remembers when she passed. Before she can answer, Frank mediates and tells the group that Zoe needs to rest. When the security guard finally goes home, the team performs a CT scan on Zoe and finds out that there's a lot of neural activity in her brain. Nico explains that more than 10% of Zoe's brain is active, and most normal people have a maximum of 10% brain functions. It means that she exceeds the normal now, and no one knows what the rest of the 90% does to a person. Meanwhile, Frank assures Zoe that everything will be alright, and gives her necklace back with the engagement ring inserted into the chain. While he puts the necklace around her neck, Zoe is startled when she seems to hear his thoughts saying that something is wrong with her. When she asks him about it, he denies speaking of anything and tries to explain that Zoe is going through a traumatic experience. While he is talking, Zoe suddenly mimics what he is about to say, making him frightened, and he leaves the room. Zoe further tests her newfound abilities, while Frank tells the team about what is happening. It seems that when she concentrates enough, she can hear all their thoughts about everything. Later, Zoe notices her darkened fingertips and goes to the comfort room to freshen up. She also sees that the spot where Frank injected the serum has darkened, and accidentally breaks the mirror. Suddenly, Rocky appears growling at her and Zoe glares at him, then Rocky's whining is heard throughout the hallway. Zoe heads to Frank and tells him her concern about something being wrong with her. She starts to vomit and claims that when she died, she felt trapped and unable to escape the burning apartment building. She even tries to explain that she's changing, and what she experienced was her personal hell and she's been there for years on a loop. But Frank remembers her nightmare and dismissed it as a bad dream like before, claiming that she's been gone in less than an hour and it's just the after effect of the serum. Frank injects her with something to make her sleep to help ease her mind, but even when she's asleep, her brain function seems to continue. Eva's concern for Zoe's well-being made her checks for her friend, but when she's about to leave the room, she is suddenly sucked into Zoe's nightmare of the burning building. Eva walks into the hallway when she notices a young girl standing while holding something. When Eva tries to approach her, she sees the same burning hands under the door as the little girl flees. The lights in the hallway turn off one by one until all that is left is endless darkness. Suddenly, a bright light shines on her and a burning hand tries to grab her. Eva screams and she wakes up while the other finds her lying on the floor. She tells them what she experienced, including the little girl, the burning apartment, and the people pleading for help. She then sees her wounded arm where the burning hand grabs her in the dream, and they demand an answer from Frank. Frank informs them about Zoe's childhood experience, in which she got trapped in a burning apartment and saw her neighbor burn. Eva concludes that maybe Zoe sees something before she died, and her soul might be trapped somewhere. Meanwhile, Zoe is left alone sleeping and she seems to have a nightmare while trying to say a prayer. She suddenly stops praying and grabs her necklace, then starts to float, and when she opens her eyes, it's all hellishly black. Nico noticed that Zoe is gone from the couch she's lying on and starts to look for her. He gets startled when Zoe grabs him and begs for help to make her feel normal again. She kisses him to try to manipulate the man, but Nico rejects her advances because he feels that it isn't right to take advantage of her. She confesses that everything she does is to make up for her one mistake, and she's angry because she still ends up in hell. Nico tries to comfort Zoe, but the woman is too far gone and her eyes go all black again. The lights go out and when it comes back, Zoe is gone. Suddenly, an unseen force drags Nico inside a metal cabinet, and Zoe telekinetically crushes the container while the man is inside. Later, Zoe appears like she just woke up when the three of the remaining team show up and inquire about Nico's whereabouts. Zoe denied any knowledge of the man, while she acts like nothing is wrong. Clay freaks out and tries to call the police when suddenly the lights go out and the phone is dead. Frank and Clay try to figure out how they will get out of the laboratory without a power source when Zoe starts to insult Eva for trying to be part of the team, even though she's not a scientist. This makes Eva suspects that Zoe has something to do with Nico's disappearance, while Zoe still plays ignorant of everything that is happening. When Clay strongly demands Zoe to tell him about Nico's whereabouts, Zoe uses her telekinetic power to make Clay choke on his own e-cig. While losing his breath, Clay sees Zoe smile and winks at him, realizing that she's responsible for everything. It's too late though, because even though Frank and Eva try to save him, they wasn't able to. They turn around to look at Zoe, but the woman just stares blankly without feeling any remorse for what just happened. Once more, the lights turn off and Zoe vanishes. When she appears, she summons all the equipment around them and throws it at Frank and Eva. The two finally realize that something is seriously wrong with Zoe, so they attempt to find something to stop her, and use a lethal injection. He gives some of the needles to Eva and advises her to do everything she can to be able to inject Zoe. He then heads out into the hallway and sees Zoe sobbing. He tries to approach while hiding the syringe in his hands, but since Zoe can read his mind, she already knows about it. Frank tells her that he still loves and adores her, but Zoe knows that he doesn't believe she's the same. Zoe suddenly grabs Frank's head and starts to squeeze until his neck snaps, while her eyes are all black and scary. Zoe grabs the rest of the serum and injects it all into herself, so she can further enhance her powers. She then hunts for Eva while frightening the girl more by whispering her name and playing her favorite classical music. Suddenly Zoe appears upside down, causing Eva to stumble into the ground. She approaches the frightened intern and starts to whisper a prayer. When Zoe throws her with her powers, Eva finds herself back in the burning apartment building. She runs into the girl standing in the hallway, but she recognizes her as the young Zoe. When she looks at her hands, she sees a book of matches, meaning it's Zoe that started the fire all along. Eva tries to assure her that it isn't her fault, thinking that if she can make her open the door on the burning neighbor, they can free her soul of the torment she's going through. As evil Zoe approaches, the young Zoe opens the door and they are blinded by a white light. Suddenly, it appears that Eva manages to inject evil Zoe with the syringe, and Zoe reverts back to her form. She apologizes for everything she did and Eva injects another syringe into her neck, to make sure that she perishes away. Eva falls over upon hearing the sirens from outside, and firefighters quickly approach the scene. One of the firemen tries to give her comfort when she suddenly notices that Zoe's body is missing. She slowly faces the fireman and sees Zoe's face on him, who then breaks her neck. Later, Zoe lines up the deceased body of her team, while she places Frank on the table. She injects the serum from her own body into Frank's, and he suddenly comes back to life. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to help the channel out. You can also hit the notification bell for more upcoming full movie recaps.